And good evening, folks. Coming back at you with a different show tonight, covering some of Nate the Lawyer's content tonight. This one's a little overdue because I've been kind of held up the last week, but I did just do a Dart Dawkins video, my shortest video ever, I think, under 30 minutes. So I don't think I've done a video that short, yeah, ever. So this one I'm covering a kind of an interesting one. Let me get some things kind of erased here or changed up. This one from Nate the Lawyer involves, just for context, there is a little bit of a scandal going on. And actually, I will play the intro from Nate's vid here. And that'll get us kind of set up for this. So let me give this a run through here. And as usual, let me know if sound's not working.
A Virginia Democratic candidate is getting caught up in a porn scandal before her campaign can even begin.
Okay, so let's talk about this crazy story coming out of Virginia and how I like to say it's interesting how the rules are different for Democrats than Republicans.
Here we go.
All right, so the political climate in Virginia has taken a very unexpected turn. Here's
Okay, so
everything you're going to need to know. Currently,
So he's going to do a quick rundown of like the race going on. I just want to point this out for as far as political scandals go. Susanna Gibson, who's involved in this particular situation, is a local candidate. She's running at the state level, state of Virginia level, Commonwealth Virginia level. Excuse me for anybody who's in Virginia. Um, and um, and there's a seat that's open. I think they're doing the special elections coming up in November, and she's a Democratic candidate, pro-choice, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know enough about her particular county or anything. I think she's from Henrico or something like that. I think it's predominantly conservative. Not sure what her chances are going to be. I think it swings conservative. So I think she's kind of a long shot candidate. And then this scandal happened. Now, if you Google her, you'll find out that she is a 40-year-old nurse practitioner. And this is her first time running. The scandal that she got into is that she has an account on the website Chatterbait, which up until this little scandal dropped, I didn't even know was around anymore. I remember when that website first launched, and it was a punchline for talk show hosts and The Daily Show for like weeks after it premiered. And I had no idea that it was still kind of circulating around. Apparently it is. And she has a video on there where she is engaging in consensual sex with her husband on camera. So this got out, and essentially, somebody, a quote unquote Republican operative who claims they were not affiliated with her opponents or anything, took this, I believe, to the Washington Post first and the Associated Press, gave it to them. And so that's kind of where things are at. So I'm going to play through this, and I'll pause occasionally as Nate puts his take on this. Now, rolling back to the original idea of this, he's already said like he thinks there's a double standard at play here. And the title is "Democrat Who Got Caught Live Streaming Sex for Money Blames Men and Gender Bias." That title is misleading, and you'll see why.
Republicans hold a narrow majority in the Virginia House of Delegates, 51 to 46 seats, while Democrats hold a narrow majority in the state Senate, holding 22 seats to Republicans' 18 seats. Now, I want you to meet Susan Gibson. She's a nurse practitioner who's running for one of those critical seats in the House of Delegates. And this could actually determine the state's political trajectory. Now, recently, a massive story broke out. The Washington Post had revealed that Gibson and her husband live stream explicit content on a legal adult website called Chatterbait, where they asked for tips from viewers to perform sex acts. Here's local news covering the story.
This after videos of Democratic candidate Susanna Gibson have come to light of her having sex with her husband on a live webcam-based porn site. According to the Washington Post, who first reported the videos, in the live broadcasts that were recorded and put online, Gibson asks viewers for tips to perform certain acts. The Post was tipped off by a Republican operative who has said to have no ties to her opponent. In a statement, Gibson said in part, quote, "This is an illegal invasion of my privacy designed to humiliate me and my family. It won't intimidate me, and it won't silence me. My political opponents and their Republican allies have proven they're willing to commit a sex crime to attack me and my family because there's no line they won't cross to silence women when they speak up.
Now, obviously, Gibson's a Democrat because she went straight to the identity politics, right?
Right, only Democrats engage in identity politics. The conservative Christian moral majority, family values, patriots none of that has anything to do with quote unquote identity. Gotcha.
Oh, they leaked my sex tape. They're attacking me because I'm a woman. No, this happens to everybody.
I kind of agree with him here in terms like this would happen to any politician. I mean, anything like this is going to be, it's going to be a target. And more, I think probably Gibson maybe even knew it. I don't agree with this whole thing like, oh, they're attacking me because I'm a woman. I think the implicit suggestion is that the Republicans are misogynists and they're going after her with the sex stuff because they can. Um, Now, I don't know. uh, I'm not going to say that Democratic operatives wouldn't do the same thing. On the other side, there's plenty of muckrakers out there that'd be willing to do this. But it's always interesting how these things kind of flush out because this particular person that leaked this claimed not to be affiliated with her campaign or whatever. I don't know if they're dubious of any connection with a candidate or not, but she went right out. I think the more interesting thing is that she actually claims that they engaged in a sex crime. They committed a sex crime by doing this, by releasing this against her, which is kind of that might be a stretch. And Nate's going to get into that a little bit, and we'll probably have more to agree on at that point. But
If you have a sex tape out there and it gets leaked, they get everyone.
yeah, but this really wasn't. I mean, this is the interesting thing. If you got a sex tape and you're hiding it and it comes out, that's one thing. I don't think this would have been controversial if it had been. If she had a tape of just her and her husband having sex, even if they're kind of rowdy and getting wilder into some things that maybe you don't particularly understand or have the physical capacity to try. That wouldn't be really. I mean, it's a married couple that happen to video themselves having sex one day. This is the fact that they have like an account and they're live streaming. She has an account, she's live streaming. That's supposed to be the salacious part, even though it's legal. So it's not exactly a sex tape. Nate knows that. It's not a point of correction for Nate. But the weird thing about this, though, is that it's not public in the sense that I think the media narrative around this is kind of driving it. And it's a media narrative that I think Nate is not critical enough of.
Matter of fact, he is a Republican, right? Who had a tape of him naked leaked too. And he didn't say it was because I'm a man and they want to keep men silent.
No, he said it was because of me, and it's a drip drip campaign against me, and we all have to hold together. Didn't I tell you this was going to happen? And then accused whoever leaked it of blackmail, which last time I checked was a felony. So no, he didn't say they're doing this because I'm a man. So he gets away with that, I guess.
He had to eat it. Check it out.
He had to eat it because the opposition came from Republicans against him in a primary. Watch this.
This morning, North Carolina Congressman Madison Cawthorn addressing a new round of allegations. The embattled freshman in the throes of a Republican primary now answering questions about a video of him out on social media by an opposition group. And it purportedly shows him acting crass, I guess you could say, with a friend in a bedroom while not wearing any clothing at all. CNN's Sunlin Serfati is live with the details. Sunlin, what can you tell us?
Well, Brianna, this is a completely shocking video appearing to show the congressman completely naked in this video. Now, notably, this is put out by an opposition group. This is a group that's working.
I like the emphasis that completely naked. Most people are completely naked when they have sex. I mean, unless they're like, somebody just got a shirt on and nothing else, kind of Porky Pig in it.
Actively to try to defeat the congressman in the upcoming Republican primary. But the congressman.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I took that out of context. For some reason, I thought she was, the Cawthorn one. Yeah, in the Cawthorn tape. Sorry, folks. I thought he was Porky Pig in it. I thought he had a shirt on during that. Anyway, he's at very least pantsless. According to this wide-eyed lady, he was completely naked. And the video, I think his friend videoed him, and he's like grinding his pelvis against another friend's head. That's, I think, the extent of the whole thing. Like, he's clearly harassing this guy in as he described it, a crass manner.
Notably, in pushing back and trying to downplay the video, he admitted that it is indeed him in the video. He says it's crass and that this happened a few years ago with a friend. In total, his tweet says, quote, "A new hit against me just dropped. Years ago in this video, I was being crass with a friend trying to be funny. We were acting foolish and joking. That's it. I'm not backing down. I told you there would be a drip drip campaign. Black
Ew, maybe don't talk about the release of this kind of tape. Sorry. His wasn't really sexual so much as just gross.
male won't win. We will."
Now, I played
He didn't, by the way. Spoiler alert for anybody that, in the Wayback Machine, Madison Cawthorn did not win that. And I don't think Nate gets into the most important part of that opposition stuff that came out against him. Let's see what he says here.
that to show you the BS, right? This Democratic woman, Ms. Gibson, she's all, they're doing it because they're a woman. They want to silence women.
No, that's not exactly what she said. And Nate's starting to do the voice again. I'm not going to get into that too deeply because I got some serious pushback when I made when I reacted to Nate's "I'm a silly dingbat" voice kind of thing when the woman starts to get hysterical and defend herself. Her claim was basically that the Republicans are misogynist and would attack a woman who disagrees with them. And then she went on to accuse them of a crime. I think that's a bigger issue here. Nate's focusing on well, there's a double standard here. Madison Cawthorn can't do the same thing. Well, he kind of did, right? Somebody found a video of him being weird and pervy with his friend or cousin or whatever, grinding his naked pelvis and, slash genitals into his forehead or into his head area, whatever. And yeah, what do you do? You know, Cawthorn had a lot of photos like that. But keep in mind, Cawthorn, in a lot of his cases, that was the least of his problems. The opposition research that came out against him, like the tapes and stuff, you really couldn't do anything about that. Cawthorn, at that point, this was a point where I think he'd already been in and he was being primaried. And he was not popular. He had a lot of scandals, a lot of weird things that happened in his brief stint in the House, and including stories about how he was actually injured, how he came to be in a wheelchair, his I think issues with his transcript, his college transcript. There was a lot of weird stuff that happened with him, and the when these things started coming out, there was a Republican or at least conservative opposition group that was actively digging up all the dirt they could find on him, to the point where they were releasing photos of him, Madison Cawthorn, at a party where he's dressed in lingerie. He's got women, around him, and they're having drinks and stuff. He's wearing women, like a negligee, and he's in his wheelchair, partying it up. Personally, I don't think that that's particularly offensive or shocking. I don't know what the theme of the party was, but it's like, okay. And I think this was well before he was in politics or anything. And I don't think it was actually meant to scare Democrats. For the kind of left wing libertines that a lot of Republicans think that Democrats are, that's the kind of photo that might win Cawthorn over to them. Most of the stuff came out to help convince Republicans that Cawthorn was not Republican enough, that he wasn't really Republican, that he didn't have good values, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that video was one of them, because that was during that primary. And I believe his Republican candidate beat him soundly. So slightly different. Also, another big thing, Nate is right that there's a double standard going on here. Madison Cawthorn was on the national stage. He ran and won a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives and been there for 2 years. And he was running again. I think he got primaried. And that's when a lot of the scandal stuff came out. I mean, there was scandal stuff kind of coming out while he was, during his first term. But I think he only made it one term. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, if you know. I think he only made it one. This woman, Susanna Gibson, is a brand new political candidate, and she's running at local state stuff. This is local state election stuff. And she's running for the state level House in Virginia. So kind of a different spotlight. If you're in the federal government, either the U.S. House or the U.S. Senate, the stakes can get a little bit higher, and the enemies that you make can be a little bit more powerful. If you're at the local level, maybe not so much. So this is a unique one, not only because the scandal is unique. I'll grant anybody that. I mean, she's got apparently she had this account and she was engaged in Chatterbait or whatever, and there's nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But most times in politics, most politicians would try to button that up and hide it. It was just there for pretty much anybody to find, and I'm pretty sure. My guess is they knew that that was going to happen, and they didn't care. They kind of planned it. So
Bullcrap. Bullcrap. When it's a Republican man and the same thing happens, right? It's, oh my God, it's so funny.
it wasn't the same thing. Both of them had a tape leak. Now this is kind of weird. He claims that it's blackmail that the video came out against him. Cawthorn does, and in that case, he's doing something non-consensual. He's harassing somebody with his naked pelvic area, and he just writes it off as being crass. But somebody released this, without his knowledge. They found the tape, and it's blackmail. I told you there'd be a drip drip campaign. In her case, she's saying, yeah, this is basically an invasion of my privacy. I don't think she actually intended to hide this. It's available on Chatterbait. What are you doing on? They don't do this, but if you found this, it was because you went on Chatterbait. And ostensibly, you clicked on the whole thing. I am 18 years or older, blah blah blah, and you got into this whole thing, and you went looking around. Somebody found this and tipped somebody off, and it probably was tipped off in a series of different chains. That's usually how these things happen, and so here we are. The double standard here, I'm not seeing. There's not really a double standard. They're both unfortunate things to happen. These kinds of sex scandals happen to politicians. I agree with them on that. But I don't see how this is a double standard. I don't see how she's getting special treatment other than the fact that there is an enormous amount of negative attention being directed at her by the conservative political media apparatus in the country. And she's a local politician for Virginia State. So if there's a double standard, I'd say it's not in her favor.
A bad guy. You see the way even CNN's reporting it, right? CNN's not reporting this other story because it's a woman, but they're reporting it on the guy because he's a Republican male. We all see the double standard. And
that's not necessarily a double standard. Again, there's two different levels of this. One is a national. Madison Cawthorn was already a rep, I believe, when that tape came out. Right, he'd done 2 years as a House rep, and he was running for re-election, and he got primaried on the right, and this stuff was coming out against him from right-wing operatives that wanted him gone. I don't think Nate mentions the whole thing where he had done an interview where he mentioned that he was being invited to orgies with old men and cocaine. Republican ones. These were conservative old men who had orgies together with drugs. That did not go over well with the old men who engage in orgies with cocaine. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Think about how different these stories are. In her story,
I'm trying, and I'm not seeing the double standard.
This is something that she put out there, right? She's doing it for pay, right? Pay me and my husband, and we'll do whatever you want, right? Give me a coin, and I'll put his thing in my mouth.
Okay, this is crass because that's not actually. I mean, it kind of is how it works, but she's not doing this for money. They engage. This is kind of an exhibitionist site. And from what I understand about this, as they broke it down, other sources broke it down later. In fact, The Intercept wrote an article about how the Washington Post got this story wrong. When the Washington Post wrote about how they were doing this, the Washington Post put out this thing where she and her husband were engaging in the tips thing in a way that was in violation of terms of service, which was ridiculous because they actually reversed the problem. If, according to, between the account from the Washington Post, which I read, and then the account from The Intercept, and you can find both of those on there. They're both behind paywalls, so do what you can. But when you, the Washington Post basically makes it sound like, well, they were basically soliciting tips, and that's wrong. It's not. If people want to tip a user slash perform, they want to solicit or tip a performer, that's fine. If the performer asks for tips in exchange and they suggest different things that they're willing to do for them, that's not a violation. The violation is the other way. If the users demand the performers do things in exchange for tips, and that is a violation of terms of service, especially if they start insisting on it, because then they're getting stalky and harassing, so they will be gone. So the fact that they're doing this for tips, I don't think they were doing this for, I mean, I don't know that this is meant to be. Cost of living in Virginia can be kind of high, but I don't imagine that they're doing it. She's a nurse practitioner. I don't know what her husband does, but I mean, it seems to me that they're just sexual exhibitionists, and this is their thing. So
this guy, it legitimately was put out behind his back, right? He didn't give anybody permission to put that out. On one end, she's putting it out publicly. On the other end,
well, hang on. He was videoed by somebody else. so his permission or whatever. I mean, with revenge porn laws having come into play now, I don't think there were many on the books back when this happened to him. He might have had a stance there. But if he's some of the videos and stuff or photos that have been taken of him that he'd usually kind of blow off. Those aren't as somebody videotapes him and then plays it, tapes him, videos him, and then tries to use that against him. That is shitty. In this case, though, the opposite side of this is not that she and her husband are not recording themselves, putting that on a billboard or a TV, attaching that large TV to the top of their car, and then driving through public spaces with it. You have to go to Chatterbait, the website. You have to want to go to Chatterbait. That's step one. That's a hurdle. Step two, and I'm not trying to kink shame or anything. It's just I'm not like trying to ick anybody's taste. But Chatterbait is just it's a mess site. I had not been to it. I had not seen it in years since the initial curiosity, like I said, when it came out. And when I went there to find this story to see how this works because allegations were made about the tipping thing, and it doesn't work the way. Surprise, surprise, it doesn't work the way the articles were saying it does. But anyway, if you have your content on that site, that is available to members of the public if they go to the website. It's not like it's being broadcast for free. So there's a little bit of nuance there.
And he's being kind of screwed by somebody who leaked the tape of him. I just want to make it very clear. There are definitely two standards, one for men, one for women.
I don't see how this is a different standard for men or women. I mean, he agreed that these were different. These are different kinds of scandals. In the case Cawthorn nowadays, if the same thing had happened, he'd have a case to make, especially in Virginia, given Virginia state law, that the person that released that video of him was engaged in kind of a revenge porn scenario. The problem with that is that the behavior that Cawthorn was engaged in could also have been considered slightly criminal. So you'd have to deal with that kind of issue because he's essentially, kind of maybe not assaulting, maybe getting a little too frisky with his groin against someone else's head, face, neck area when they don't want it, and maybe weren't entirely conscious when he started. So, yeah, that's a whole thing to untangle. But that's very different than if you have consensual sex with your spouse on camera and you live stream it to maybe it's their favorite porn site and it's available for users of that site to go on and watch and click. One of the things that you should know, and this is one of the things I wanted to confirm, was that people were like, well, this is just free for everyone to see. I think that if you're accepting tips, which was one of the accusations, they were accepting tips and they're not supposed to do that. They can accept tips, but I think the only way they can do that is if they're in a private show. And if anybody doesn't understand Chatterbait, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you have to be in a private show in order to get the tips. And if you're in a private show, you have to log on to the account. You have to have a membership with them. I think it's free, but that's the only way that you can. In fact, you can't even normally when you see them and it says this performer's in private, the screen is black. There's a link that says you can spy on them or something like that. When you click on that, it will ask you to log in just to do that, and then you have to go further, and that's when you can interact with the performers. And I think your interaction is either is essentially just tipping them. So that is the extent to what I know about the site. I don't know if Susanna Gibson removed her account. I never even bothered to look for it. So if anybody gets interested in this and wants to delve into that, so to speak, if you want to try to find the account, and I'll actually give you an idea how to do that because the Washington Free Beacon, the conservative force in politics that it is, actually did that. So let's play this through, and I think he actually gets to their component in this.
One for Democrats and one for Republicans. And when a Democrat can just throw out identity politics, that seems to be the answer. No one has any sorrow for this Republican who got caught out there. But now you have all.
No, that's not necessarily true. People don't have a lot of sorrow for Madison Cawthorn because Cawthorn put himself in a lot of positions of being notoriously bigoted, mean-spirited, and a callous jackass. So when you do that long enough, a lot of people aren't going to send pity or empathy your way. It's sad, but it happens. I do have some sympathy for the fact that does smack of revenge porn, but again, it's a little bit tricky given the behavior that was being captured on video. The person that was releasing that to spite him could be guilty of revenge porn, and yet the behavior being captured on there could also have gotten Cawthorn currently in hot water. And I don't think anything criminal happened with it, or even civil. So, um, and I don't think he has much of a political career. Nicola, you're right. We did cover that. Yeah, and it's interesting because the Washington Post had it the opposite way, trying to say that that was, and the Intercept called them out on it, and I don't think it's been corrected or retracted, that component of it. So let's see here.
All these groups, everybody having sorrow for this woman who got caught out putting out a tape, putting out something that she put out publicly herself, right?
I don't know that a lot of people have expressed any sympathy or pity for Susanna Gibson for this, specifically for that reason. I mean, to the extent I don't think that this is public. To the extent Nate seems to be making it's just out there for anybody to see. It's out there for people who know how to get to Chatterbait and are willing to go on there and try to find her content. Um, so to that extent, yes, it's available, but it's not like she wasn't like sending this out. It wasn't on broadcast. This wasn't like a link in the AP. Now, the interesting thing is that if you go to the Washington Free Beacon, you can get links to exactly where the stuff was. They make it very, very available without an adult blocker, I might add. And I'll talk about that more in just a bit.
Right? Ain't nobody leaked that tape. She put it out publicly herself. Now, Gibson's attorney points out that there may be some potential violations of revenge porn, emphasizing the illegality of distributing such content maliciously. Now,
yeah, and he's going to get into this, and I'm going to let that part play through, but I wanted to highlight this. You're exactly right. We're supposed to feel bad that he played with fire and got burned. Yeah, that to me is kind of the issue. So he admits he was being crass, and he's doing this thing to his friend, cousin, whatever, whoever it was, and then happened to get video. There's proof of it, and too bad, so sad. That's going to happen to you. They're not trying in the Gibson's case, Susanna Gibson and her husband. They're not actually trying to hide this. And they're not angry that this was I don't think that they're angry that this is known. This was somebody took this thing and then went and ran off to the press with it and then said, hey, here's this stuff, look at this salacious thing that they're doing here. And one of the things that gets brought up in the Intercept article is that usually when they bring up an article like this, there's really not anything there, but the hook on this particular tip is that they were using the site Chatterbait, and they were abusing the tip system. So you have this potential thing where, like, okay, you have a sex tape kind of thing, no big deal. Everybody's tired of those. But this is live sex streaming. Okay, no big deal. People do that. Between consensual married couple, oh, boring. But here's the real trick: they were violating the terms of service by begging for money and promising to do whatever for cash on there, which they claimed was a violation of terms of service. Thus, the implication being, well, if Susanna Gibson can't be trusted with the terms of service of a porn site, how could you trust her as a state rep? That's an interesting angle to get it in there. Anybody else that was looking at this maybe a little bit more critically probably would not have run with it, because there's not much here other than just the salaciousness of, okay, we have a political candidate who engages in consensual sex with her spouse on camera and live streams it on a legal website for that site's users to view. Maybe in poor taste, maybe not everybody's kettle of fish, but
Now, he hinges his argument on a 2021 Virginia Court of Appeals ruling that stressed that giving consent does not equate to consent to being recorded. Now, I'm believing that is if you're in an intimate relationship with someone and someone takes off their clothes, they've given consent for you to see them naked, but they didn't give consent for you to record them. That's different than what happened in this situation. See, the issue here is Gibson made the video public herself. So it's going to be hard to claim that in performing a public sex act, that she deserves some privacy.
See, and I got to disagree with him here. I don't think it's fair to designate what they're doing as a public sex act. It's available through a publicly available website, but it's a website with terms of service. It ostensibly has an age limit on it, even though, I think most of us know that those are perfunctory, but it's still there. You have to actively go and look for it. The fact that it's not readily available unless you, one, go there to look for it, two, are willing to do that. And in some cases, you even knew who she was. So in a lot of these cases, these people they're anonymous. Sometimes the video quality is, you know, whatever. Often some of these people will even, I mean, they'll use pseudonyms for a reason. But I don't know that they're really trying to hide this per se. But at the same time, taking what they're doing on this website and then blowing it up and trying to say, like, somebody taking that and saying, "Hey, Washington Post, AP, highlight this and talk about what this politician's doing," and then broadcasting that. That's on the Republican operative that did that. Now more people have been exposed to the shock and horror of this videoed consensual sex between a married couple.
Privacy protection. She essentially gave consent when she made it publicly available. And now
To have it blown up in the media, that's going to be for the courts to decide. I mean, I don't know. I think that Nate's got a point. I think it'd probably be a stretch, but there might be something there.
she's trying to claim that it's really a private moment. That doesn't work. But think about this. Does she have an expectation of privacy when her and her husband stream those illicit contents publicly for all to see? Now, the law states,
Again, they're not for all to see, because the one thing that you have going on with a porn site is that it does have blockers on it. At least it's supposed to. Nobody under the age of 18, you only do that with contacts. And granted, I know how flimsy that is, and I'm probably going to take criticism for that. But still, they're doing the minimum of what they can to make sure that it's not available to absolutely all of the public. It's not the same as like a library or something. You have to find this, go there, agree to it, be of age, et cetera, et cetera. And those are all part of the terms of service. If they find out that you're gone. It's not available to you anymore. If you do other things to abuse whatever's going on in there, you can be removed and gone. So it's not completely open to the public. He keeps bringing this point up, and I think this is interesting. If you look up the Washington Free Beacon, they've done multiple hyperventilating articles about Susan Gibson since this started. And they did some of the originals. And one of them, let me find the exact title, because it has a really interesting gimmick in it. The Washington Free Beacon, for you to know, I was there reading up on an article that was cited in one of Nate's other videos. And while I was there, a little pop-up window appears, and lo and behold, it's a screenshot. Now I'm reading an article about a completely different issue, and I'm like, "Hey, would you like to read this story?" And it's a screenshot of her doggy style with stars over some pertinent beds and her husband behind her, but both of them naked. And that appears for anyone to see on the Washington Free Beacon, which has no parental kind of guardrail or anything, and it's not behind a paywall. That's just there for you to click on. So I'm like, well, that's interesting. Now I wonder how bad this gets. So I click on this, and I'm like, well, I was looking for this article too. Click on it. I'm like, lo and behold, there's a screen cap of the two of them, um, cheesily blurred with like big gold stars where the naughty parts are. And when you scroll all the way down to the bottom after reading this person talk about her viewers as if they are victims, which is interesting. Um, this is the last bit. Gibson's performances offer voters a full picture, a little too full, of her professional background, and for readers interested in the X-rated version, you can find it here, which is a hyperlink. Here is a hyperlink. Mr. Watkins, Miss Gibson, we welcome that lawsuit. So they're basically calling them out. Hey, go ahead and sue us. They have prepared a rather tasteless 16-page PDF document with nude screenshots, captions, and commentary. Also, not behind a paywall or any, this isn't protected by any kind of subscription paywall. Free Beacon is, it's free to use, and not behind any kind of adult content blocker. There's no warnings. So, now, they don't show full nude, I don't think. But on top of that, they also list when you find that document, which they've assembled, somebody put this together, it has all of the dead links. It has the links to the website that archived this. My understanding is Chatterbait does not archive videos, but there are websites that do, and this one was saved on it. And I think the person that originally got this stuff was from there. The Free Beacon definitely did. They went there, looked this up, pulled these clips and these screen grabs off of that, and attached every single link to every single screen cap so you could go there and find out. For those of you who are interested, naturally, yes, they have all been removed, because I don't think the one that archives these is supposed to be doing that. I think that that's a violation of what Chatterbait's terms of service. So yeah, saying like, "Oh my God, it's out there," and they just left it open there for everybody. Said, well, the free beacon certainly helped get more viewers for this. So I'm kind of wondering like what role does the free beacon play, and like if they're trying to be like, I can't believe she put this smut out there. By the way, if you want to see all this smut, we've got a free version that you can see right here. Enjoy, people. Um, you know, tell the kids to gather around.
That the person who's has this information or releases it has to know or has reason to know that he or she is not licensed or authorized to disseminate or sell such videographic or still image. And if you do, you're guilty of a class 1 misdemeanor. But how would someone know that they're not authorized to distribute, or even have reason to know that they can't distribute this or show anyone else because you've already made it public? You're streaming it publicly, right? On a site that...
Well, I think Nate's being a little disingenuous about this because we know that we can't do that as YouTubers. Like just because somebody's done something public, put a public video out there doesn't mean I can go out and just distribute it, because I want to. I mean, and for the purposes of trying to say like, well, they committed a crime. In this case, they didn't. Well, they're being outrageous. Okay, fine. But you took a video off a porn site, and I mean, think about this: if it weren't for the sex, if somebody grabbed us something like this, from YouTube and took it and ran off and and they're like, hey, here's this person being outrageous on they're pulling pranks in a public park or something like that. Now, most of the stuff that you would end up reporting that would come from YouTube that would be it in any way newsworthy would have to probably violate YouTube's terms of service. They would have to be performing something dangerous or saying something horrific or, basically any of the things that are going to get you in trouble with YouTube. They happen to find that on there, or they find out that they did do that and they tried to remove it. Somebody recorded it, say, hey, this person did this or said this in the past, tried to put it out on YouTube. Okay, maybe. But generally, the idea of like, hey, just because, they went and did this, I mean, who's to say that it can't just be disseminated? Well, YouTubers have to deal with this all the time. I can't just play Nate's video without commentary. It's a fair use standard. I can do commentary on the content that he's created, but I can't just play the whole thing and then air it and then get views off of it. That's not cool. That's a violation of the terms of service. So yeah, this is a weird situation. I don't know if it rises to this sex crime thing that she's accusing them of doing. But then again, we'll have to wait and see if anything comes of that at the Virginia courts. But I think the way he's trying to push an idea, part of the media narrative, like, well, you put it out there for all to see. Like, no, she put it out there for all Chatterbait users to see, and hopefully there aren't too many of them. I'm just kidding. I'm being needlessly judgmental of Chatterbait users.
Allows you to show other people. I don't see revenge porn here, because then everyone on a porn site can say that you're essentially doing revenge porn, right? Everybody on Pornhub or Chatterbait or whatever these sites are can say, hey, you showed my video to somebody else. That's revenge porn. What? Now, I think this is fatal to...
No, I think in that case it would be, they're violating some content rules.
Gibbons' claims of revenge porn because she publicly distributed the information. How would anyone else?
She didn't. She didn't publicly. Where did she publicly? The only place that she demonstrated that she put this out was on her channel on Chatterbait. So it's for like-minded exhibitionist users on that website. She didn't advertise this anywhere else. The leaks did. The Washington Free Beacon is helping. The Washington Post is helping kind of fan that stuff. The website that archived those videos, even though they were live streams, and like I said, I don't think Chatterbait keeps those themselves. They had that out there. So yeah, there's a lot of gray areas with this kind of thing, and I kind of agree with Nate. Like I said before, I don't know if this rises to the level of revenge porn, but it also is not this thing where it's just well, I mean, it was available for anybody to see. Like, technically, no, it's not.
Else, no, you couldn't distribute it. I just don't get it. Now, this case has attracted the attention of the FBI, local prosecutors, who all investigate no matter why. Because she's a woman, because she said that her rights were violated, and she's saying that because of her identity, because she's a woman, that's why this is happening to her. But again, when it happens to the Republican male, no one cares, right? There's nobody the FBI is not investigating that case. Different strokes for different folks.
I, no, I think there. I mean, does he remember Carlos Danger? Anthony Carlos Danger Wiener? I mean, that guy was up to all sorts of crazy stuff, and I think the investigations were multi-layered at some point. I mean, he had just all sorts of stuff going against him. I don't know. I don't remember if the FBI were ever involved in it, but these kinds of accusations have come against Democratic opponents as well. And what I think is kind of interesting about this is that I guess I'm supposed to be clutching my pearls that she would engage in consensual sex with her husband on an exhibitionist porn site, but um, you know, conservative men who are pro family values who have had multiple wives and divorced are complete hypocrites based on their own standards and have cheated on their spouses, which is a standard they definitely don't hold to, have mistresses. We just shrug at that. Like, oh well, as long as it's not on Chatterbait. But this is a married couple. This is part of their sex life. And it's been exaggerated and kind of magnified by the attention that she's got from this. And like I said, part of me thinks that they knew this was coming, and the fact that no pun intended, and the fact that they're both exhibitionists maybe plays into that. Sorry, crude joke.
Now, I also think the political issue here may be being overblown. The 57th district, the one that Gibson's running in, has never elected a Republican. And in the last election, the Democrat won 78% to 21%. So
830 says the FBI absolutely investigated Anthony Weiner. Did they? Okay, yeah, I think they did. I think I remember that, but I wasn't sure. So
I think he's pretty safe in going to win this election. Now, this may change things, right? People may say, hey, I don't know if I want my congresswoman to be doing that, but, it is what it is. So I want to ask you, do you think this is revenge porn, or do you think this is just all fair in love and war, right? Politics, for instance. I want to be clear. This wasn't a hack. This wasn't an ex-boyfriend leaking some tape made in private. This was a publicly available, live-streamed sex act.
again, I really don't think that use of public in this case with a private porn website, because even though a lot of what Chatterbait has on is free, most of these websites it's free to jump on them, but to say that that this is public, I think and that's one of the details that no, I don't think anybody really asked in any of this. Like, okay, wait, was she? And maybe they were embarrassed to ask because they're going to reveal that they know too much about Chatterbait. But they're like, wait a minute. Was this one of the ones where they're just like performing for free? They're just on, because I mean, based on what I could see on the webpage, you go on there and there's various screens. You click on one and it just goes to a webcam, a live cam of somebody. I mean, they could be doing anything explicit. They could be sitting there just, in the nude brushing their hair. I mean, it just depends on, what they do. But again, there's these private shows and this tipping thing. And if that's the case, then if they can show Gibson and Watkins, her husband's name, but if they can show that they were doing this in a private show, uh, then there was an expectation of some privacy, and that could go a lot longer to help make their case. Um, Nicholas says Anthony Weiner was a case of nominative determinism, and yes, the FBI got involved, and he even came up again in the investigation of Hillary's emails. Yeah, you have that name, and you get into that kind of trouble. It's just, it's perfect.
Let me know where you came out in the comment section. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. Tell me if you think that this is clearly revenge porn. Someone going on a porn site, performing sex acts, and then claiming that someone else, someone shared it. That means everyone on that site, whoever shared that video, is committing a crime? I don't know.
No, that's not necessarily what it was. If they're releasing it for the purposes of, some kind of malicious purpose to somehow degrade or humiliate, shame, or possibly intimidate a person out of, say, a political campaign, that's where it's going to hinge. The reasons why they did it. If somebody happened to take this, take footage of it or snag a clip and share it with their buddy, that's clearly their motives are different than the Republican operative who picked the stuff up and ran off with it to the Washington Post and the Associated Press. And I think Nate's not being clear there. There's a big difference between intent, and intent, I think, matters in these cases.
I think she got caught out there, and I think it's easy to say this is happening to me because I'm a woman. and this is happening to me because I put it out purposefully.
Well, again, she didn't really say that it happened to her because she was a woman. The implication of her statement, her official statement, was that this is happening because Republicans attack women. Slight difference, a little bit of nuance. But the emphasis seems to be that, well, Republicans are meanies and misogynists. The misogynist part is definitely usually true. The meanies part is often kind of true too, but that's usually a point of pride. They usually hate being called misogynist because they'll be like, I love my mom and I love my sis. It's like, that's not how this works. But anyway, um, yeah, again, what Nate was originally doing here. Let's see if he has one last dig.
Let me know where I'm in the comment section. My name is Nate the Last. See you next time.
Okay. Again, the point of this was to illustrate that there was a double standard between, I think, a few things. One, there's a difference between the way Democrats and Republicans are treated when it comes to these things by the media, the way they expect to be treated, maybe. And there's a difference between the way, like, a woman Democrat would react to the scandal versus a Republican. And the two examples given, the Republican Madison Cawthorn and Susanna Gibson, obviously not one-to-one comparisons, but they were the comparisons that Nate gave. I illustrated why these comparisons are kind of weak because one had already been in the national spotlight, was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, was in the federal spotlight, and was running for re-election, was primaried, and was being attacked by his own party. This woman is at a local level, Virginia State House level, and is got kind of a conservative apparatus there going after her, and it's drawing almost as much national attention, I think, or at least they're trying to get it to draw as much national attention, I think, as they can. The amount of attention being drawn towards this local scandal is disproportionate. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't expect it. It is a sex scandal, even though the sex involved in this is not controversial, other than the fact that people will be like, well, that's not my lifestyle. Like, it may not be, but that these two are not cheating on each other. She wasn't caught with a secret lover. None of that kind of stuff. They're it's a husband and wife having sex with each other. I think she admits that they're open or something like that. If you're willing to go into, if you find the Free Bacon thing and you can read all the commentary that the Free Bacon was thorough enough to type up for you. She gets a little rowdy in some of those comments, and like I said, those are free for kids to read. She seems to have the, kind of the sexual appetite and drive that would both terrify and exhaust a fraternity. So there's that. Maybe that's what this is about. But the double standard just does not seem to be there, and I don't see that Nate made the case for that. They both were shamed, or they there was an attempt to shame them in either case. Um, the fact that, like, this, both sides do this to them doesn't make sense because it's Republicans going after a Democrat in this case, and Republicans went after one of their own in the other case. So it's just, okay, Republicans like to sling mud when it comes to sexy time stuff, or anything involving nudity and genitals. Um, is that a double standard? The fact that the Democrats haven't really mixed it up that way, don't know. Because while Democrats have demonstrated that they have the capacity to engage in some salacious stuff, Carlos Danger, I don't know that Democrats were the ones that kind of revealed that stuff about him. I mean, some of that stuff came out during, like, the Hillary Clinton uh, inquiries and stuff for her servers and email. So, yeah, anybody that's critical of this, just let me know. I don't think that Nate had a good take on this. I mean, he broke it down fairly well, but I think trying to exercise this idea, like, she's out of whack. She's trying to blame this on the fact that she's a woman. She's trying to take, oh, I'm being attacked because I'm a woman. I don't see that there in this. Maybe some people do. Clearly, some conservatives do. Trying to compare this, make this as some kind of, like, double standard in terms of how politicians are treated. I don't see that. If anything, her level of treatment, it's disproportionately, but they're targeting her pretty hard. They targeted Cawthorn pretty hard, but again, it wasn't Democrats going after Cawthorn, so it's not an exact opposites kind of thing. There isn't a total parallel. And the other one is the media response to this. What is the media double standard here? They went after Cawthorn and they had no pity for him because look what he did, and then with her, they're just, they're empathetic and all this kind of stuff. And he didn't demonstrate that there's been any kind of, like, sympathy or any kind of, commiseration with her and her plight. This could end up costing her in her particular election race. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if she won. But a lot of that is going to depend on the fact, probably going to depend on the fact that she's running on a pro-choice platform in a state where that's the right that reproductive health and reproductive rights is under attack, and the fact that she is an exhibitionist that enjoys having sex with her husband is probably not going to matter to people that want to get a candidate that is making promises to safeguard that. So the media narrative on top of it doesn't seem to be a double standard either. So I just think that this really didn't do it. Let's see. Sent you an example of something that might more closely be a double standard, because when a Republican woman did something similar, no one complained on your Discord. All right, let me take a look now. Since we're on here, I'm going to shut this down. And by the way, the name of the title from the Washington Free Beacon, if you want to look at it, one of them, because there's multiple. Revenge Porn, a Virginia Democrat gaslights the public. And there was another one that was done later. Cocksure Virginia Democrat, like that. Cocksure Virginia Democrat slams media for reporting her public pornographic performances. So that she apparently made some kind of statement there. I don't see it. And mixed in with this particular article are more screenshots of her in the nude, but this time blurred out. Wow. Okay, the Free Beacon is trash. But then again, they did pay the Fusion GPS firm to get the Steele document, the Steele dossier combined. So, sorry, that's a cheap shot, but they did. Look it up. Let's see. All right, Nicola, what do you got for me? I probably remember this. I don't. All right, let's take a look at this. Okay. Huh. Or to avert your eyes, children, because I think some partial nudity is going to be coming your way. I'm going to go ahead and share this, and we'll take a look at this. Nope, wrong one. Keep in mind, this is from the Daily Mail, so we'll take this with a grain of salt. However, that being said, it is from the Daily Mail, and I know that I believe that Nate has covered stories from the Daily Mail. I think this is kind of in his wheelhouse. So we'll share this here. All right, add screen. Oh, it's doing it again. Okay. Yeehaw. They say I needed money, I have other assets. West Texas GOP wannabe railroad commissioner 37 divides locals after posting TikTok video of herself topless while straddling oil pumping jack. This was from February of last year. Sarah Stogner tweeted a video of her straddling an oil pumping jack while topless and without pants on. It was meant as a way to garner attention for a campaign for Texas Railroad Commissioner, which controls the state's oil and gas. She was soon ridiculed online and had an endorsement from one of the state's major newspapers rescinded. Stogner said the video was meant as a joke to bring awareness to her campaign. She also said that the San Antonio News-Express editorial felt very much like slut-shaming. It probably was. Yep. So she put this out there. It's been viewed more than 104,800 times. Strange number for Stogner's campaign as she trailed frontrunner Wayne Christian, the incumbent who currently has $766,000 on hand as voters head to the polls. Huh. Wow. Yeah, she did a whole video that way. Well, that is a bold thing to do for an ad. So yeah, and in keeping with the Daily Mail standards, always tasteful with the screenshots. So she took a lot of grief for this. Yeah, I got to say, I'm wondering where was the I don't recall this being a big deal. And I wonder what happened to her. Did she win? Sarah Stogner? Be careful about looking this up here. She announced a second camp after losing in a Republican runoff last year. Stogner said she plans to challenge incumbent chair Christy Craddock as a member of the blah, blah, blah. Texas Tribune. Okay. Well, there you have it. So I guess that's it. So, yeah, with that said, I probably will close this down. But yeah, let me know what you guys all think of my commentary on this. Like I said, the last one I did on Nate, I garnered some criticism for um, basically voicing my impression that some of the silly ditz voice kind of smacked of whatever. But you can see those in the comments for that particular one. This one. Yeah, I think this one was pretty straightforward. I just don't think that Nate really made a good case here for the double standard accusation that he's trying to get through. People ridiculed her for failing to understand what the railroad commissioner does and advocated for a traditional values platform. Maya remembered her. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I had never heard of that little campaign at all. So, all right. Well, with that being said, pretty soon politicians will show up at rallies naked. Yeah, I mean they'll have to do like campaign telethons. They just do them on Pornhub or something. So with that said, folks, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. If you got any questions, criticisms, leave a comment or email me at jeffersonspatchcock@gmail.com. As always, it's been fun hanging out with you. And oh, good, I'll be wrapping this one up within an hour, so also not too long for me. So thanks again. You all have a great night, and I will catch you next time. See you later.